So again, I'm Victoria Valdez. I'm a master's of marriage and family therapy. I'm licensed in the state of Tennessee. I'm the founder and owner of Tri Synergy Counseling. If some of you have Googled me, you might see Victoria Valdez Child and Family Counseling Services. So I recently rebranded, and so you'll see the new name more for definitely out there in case there's any confusion. It's still me. So I specialize in providing mental health counseling for children, teens, parents, adult women in the state of Tennessee. I'm also a parent coach and a wellness educator. I'm a lens technician and a provider. And I also lead the Spanish-speaking therapist group in the state of Tennessee. So if anyone's looking for Spanish-speaking therapists, I'd be a good point of contact. I'm also bilingual myself. I'm a mom of 3 children, and I'm a wife, and I love dancing and teaching Latin dancing. So that's a little bit fun stuff about me. So I'm going to cover why we chose Lens and talk a little bit about just personally how it helped us, my family, my children, and my brother-in-law, and why I became so passionate about providing this service. So starting with, I have a brother-in-law who has a TBI, a traumatic brain injury, since he was about the age of 13. His brain injury was so significant that he had to relearn how to feed himself, how to walk, and how to talk, and has no memories of before the age of 13. I had heard about Lens Neurofeedback through a colleague, through a place local here in Nashville. They came out and kind of talked to a group of therapists about the service. And I had my brother-in-law who was visiting from Mexico, and he got about 8 treatments in, and the change for him was amazing. He just felt more like himself. He always explained that he felt like since his TBI that his brain wasn't really working at 100%, he would call it. He just didn't feel like he was at 100%, like he was lagging like a computer, he said. So he had an improvement of brain functioning and brain processing. I still wasn't 100% involved or convinced. That was about 4 or 5 years ago. I still wasn't convinced. Last summer, got treated. I ended up treating myself, my husband, and 2 of my 3 children. I call myself, we're the family of ADHD. Everybody but my toddler and my husband has ADHD. It runs in our family. So I decided that, hey, I want to see what this can do for our ADHD. We also had a little bit of, one of my kiddos was dealing with a little bit of anxiety as well, and some depression. So we went in there, we got over the last summer, probably each one of us got about 6 to 8 sessions in of Lens Neurofeedback. And that was a huge game changer. For myself and my kiddos with ADHD, we were highly motivated. I felt like I could get things done. We could concentrate much better. I was amazed. As little as just even the first session, I saw an instant change. I felt highly energized, just more functioning for myself on things that I really struggled with, more productivity. My kids, one of my children who was dealing with anxiety and some depression, total game changer. They went from kind of like being in their room, feeling super irritated and anxious to, I remember they said to me, my kiddo said, wow, I feel like I can think so much more clearly and that things aren't such a big deal anymore. I feel happier. That's when I knew that was it. Like, I was like, I need to get this in my office like yesterday. And I want to be able to treat my family as regular as possible. That is why I'm here today with you guys. You can see on the presentation that I put that there was an improvement in mental clarity. Since I've been trained, and I have hired a technician who also provides Lens without therapy, and I'll talk more about that later. Some of the changes that my children have now that I have regular weekly sessions I provide to them, all of us, teachers reporting that they're not math is easier for them. They're more able to concentrate and focus, their mood. My 9-year-old tells me, with ADHD, it can be hard to, the frustration tolerance is low. It can be hard to get going and get started on things. I can give her a directive and she instantly, and my son is the same way, instantly able to manage any feelings that they're having and get the task done with no problems. Whereas before, managing those big feelings were more difficult. And it was more like, I don't want to, this is too hard. And it's a total 180. So that's I get excited talking about that, just how powerful it was. So here we are. I found a place to be trained, and fast forward, I'm offering that service. So now that you've heard about why I wanted to, I knew I needed to have this for my family and for my clients and for anyone else who really wants more change. Let's talk about what it is, right? So Lens neurofeedback is low energy neurofeedback system. It's, it's I always struggle with this word. It's an electroencephalogram, so EEG, that works more rapidly than traditional neurofeedback. And then it gives the brain different low energy radio waves for a few seconds or less than a few seconds. The signal sent to your brain, it stimulates it and it alerts it. It resets your brain to a normal state of regulating emotions, regulating your body's nervous system. This was created by a gentleman named Dr. Len Osh, and he created it about 30 years ago, approximately, and it's also FDA approved. There's been extensive research in it. So what I love about it, there's this book here, Dr. Larson, a book that he wrote called The Healing Power of Neurofeedbacks. I'm going to read a little bit about some nuggets I took from the book that I really loved how they explained. He talks about like our brain, there's not maybe a normal, right, for everyone. Everyone's brain functioning is a little bit different, right? But there's definitely an ability to have the most highly functional state of personal wellness, right? Individually, what we're able to function at for ourselves, the highest level for ourselves, right? And a lot of us are born with that, right? That high functioning level. But sometimes, and somewhere along the way, we lose it, either by trauma or other things, traumatic brain injury, anxiety. There's a plethora of things. Or we may be born with a neurological issue, right? But the goal is to achieve our own personal most highly functional state of well-being when we're using Lens. We want to restore our brain's flexibility. We're going to restore it through the use of the neurofeedback. And the neurofeedback device is actually 1,000 times less than the frequencies emitted from a cell phone. I get a lot of parents who are like, because I specialize in working with kids and they're doing neurofeedback paired with therapy, are really concerned about like, electrical activity going to the brain. And it's really comforting to know that like this is way less than a cell phone, 1,000 times less. And so if you want to read more about kind of a concept case by case studies on neurofeedback, you can read that book. You can get that on Amazon. But going back to the Lens, so what happens with Lens, the way it actually works, or I guess first following the order of my slides, is what it can help with. And then I'm going to kind of jump into and show you a little bit of the wiring and the system, and explain a little bit more about what it's doing, the neurofeedback, how we're getting the neurofeedback, all of those things. But first, this is what, Dr. Osh has collected data from just 30 years of experience using low energy neurofeedback. It's helped people with addiction, migraines, sleep issues, TBIs, cognitive issues, neurological issues, motivation issues, fatigue, if they feel like they're performing low at work, or increasing or optimizing that performance. It helps with mood issues, anger, panic attacks, trauma, PTSD, grief, depression, emotional reactivity, postpartum depression, ADHD, even as far as anxiety, OCD. Even it can help with autism, Parkinson's, oh my gosh, it's slipping my mind, Alzheimer's. Even clients who are in chemotherapy treatments where it can have that brain fog, getting regular Lens neurofeedback can really help with that brain fog and have more clarity and more functioning. Now, this isn't a full comprehensive of everything out there that Lens helps with, because Lens is it's so unique and so organic that there are things that people will come in for just to try. Like, hey, we don't know exactly, from our research if it would exactly help this, but it's worth a try. And I'll tell you, it's worth a try because from the 30 years of research, from lens neurofeedback and from traditional neurofeedback, there hasn't been any reports that have been severe adverse effects, people in hospitals or suicides, physical harm, electrical shock, any of those type of things. There has been no reports of harm or adverse effects. So for me, it's worth trying it out, right? So I'm going to go ahead and go into the next slide here. So this is where I'm going to talk more about the system and the devices that we use. So in that picture, I have the body and head sensors. So here I have, actually I didn't finish cleaning off from this morning. I've got condenser cream in there. I call these the jumper cables. These sensors, or jumper cables, I like to call them for fun. It's a little bit sticky because of the paste that I have in there. But these go on each clip on the ear. They're like a grounding, right? That's why I like to call them jumper cables in a car. You have a grounding, right? So they go right here. There's no pain involved in that whatsoever. The condenser cream is just a cream to make sure that the sensors are getting a good read from the skin. So no agitation, they're hypoallergenic. The next part is these actual sensors right here. These are the sensors that are placed on 21 sites on the head. So initially when we do, I call the toe in the water, the very first session that we do, intake and then application of the lens. So we start right here on the prefrontal cortex part right here. And that's where these lenses will go. They'll be attached with the condenser cream. The conductive cream. And clients will be placed NeuroPrep that cleans on each ear or wherever the sensors go throughout the head. It kind of like cleans it up to make sure there's a really good connection. Just kind of going through with the picture, we've got the neuro bit. This is actually where the feedback is going through. This plugs into the laptop where the system is. And then I've got the body sensors in picture there. So the body sensors are really a great game changer for anyone who has chronic pain. And those literally get placed on their body. And it's also really good for anyone who has a lot of, physiological sensitivity based on our intake questionnaires that we do with our clients to rate kind of their reactivity and their physiological sensitivity. And if somebody is very sensitive, we call, doesn't mean emotional, but their body is more responsive, then we might use the body sensors and place them the furthest from their head to avoid any type of over treatment. And I'll explain what an over treatment is and what the worst case scenario on putting too much feedback. And so the body sensors are great, again, for anyone who's just a little bit more, have a more physiological reaction. So we want less neurofeedback for them, or they're great for any pain. I've treated clients with wrist pain, arthritis, lower back pain. I treat myself for lower back pain. I now just go to the chiropractor one time a month. It gives you a relaxed state. It's really a game changer for any type of body pain and just for, again, sensitivity. If you look to the right here on the screen, that is the actual, so when you come into our office, our system is connected to a TV so you can see the live footage of your electroactivity in your brain. So the feedback. So what Lens does through those sensors that I showed you is it records your body's own electrical activity, its own feedback that it's producing very, very quickly, less than a millisecond, I believe. It records what's already happening in your brain in the sites at that moment. And then the feedback goes right back in. So whatever we've recorded goes right back in through the sensors into your brain. So I love this so much from the training. It's a beautiful example. They talked about it's like putting a mirror in front of your brain. And I love this analogy that if you're imagine you're walking after lunch, you've had this really great dinner and you have a speck of something on your face, but you don't notice it. You don't feel it. Not until you stand in front of a mirror. And then you can go, oh my gosh, now I can do something about that food. I can take it off. I can make a corrective action. Well, that's what the brain is doing. The neurofeedback lens system is putting a mirror in front of the brain to show the brain that it's not functioning at its highest or best capacity. And then the brain gets to self-heal and autocorrect. It fixes itself. It's amazing. It's powerful. And it's as little as applications range from 1 second on the site, these two sites, for example, 1 second to 4 seconds to customized sessions for individuals who might 60 seconds or 3 or 4 minutes. That's a customization. What we're doing with lens is we're matching the person's physiological response in their nervous system in their brain. I'm going to quickly go through these. This is what I call what is called a brain map. What you're looking at here is a bar graph of 21 sites of a child who has ADHD, age 9. This is the mean total amplitude because the neurofeedback is recording oh my gosh, my brain's fried or pauser, it flatlined there for a second, my brain. Alpha waves, theta, beta, and it's putting them all together and it's showing here. So if you look at these bars, the map is demonstrating after all the sites had been treated or applications have been done, you get to look at all the sites at the same time. And in this individual, you'll see that there's black and blue. What we're looking for in a balanced neurofeedback brain, when we're looking for functionality, balance, brain balancing, you want all the black to be in the range of 15 to 30%, or to 30 on the bar, 15 to 30. And you can see how on some of these bars, they're below 10 or even 5, right? And for the amplitude or the power, the strength, right? So we want a balance between 15 and 35 for each bar. Then if you look at the blue is a representation of the brain's flexibility in those sites. And we want the brain to be flexible. That's how it changes and adapts, and new neurological neurons are grown and strengthened, right? But we also want the brain to be rigid so that we can have that fixed learning, right? So that's the black. And what we're looking for in neurofeedback is to get a balance of the 35% blue for every bar that you have there. And so that's what we're looking at there. But something that's really important about the maps is that the maps are a fun, exciting way to look at the changes. And after you've gone through a whole map, all 21 sites, and you go back and start again, or you treat the ones that are in this individual, we would go back and start with T5, T6, the lower amplitudes with less blue, and then finish off the rest of the head all over again. Well, then you get to actually compare and look at the before and afters of the reorganization of the brain. But sometimes it's not always telling. Sometimes you might see the bars jump back up or go back down in blue because the brain is reorganizing. It may bring new things to the surface to reprocess. And so the best teller of if lens is working for an individual is how they feel. This is a suppression, mean amplitude suppression. So in this, a suppression map, usually the bars will be either pink, blue, or orange. Orange means hypo-suppressed. We like to call it, they're not functioning as well. They're a little tired or sleepy, right? They're not as active. And then pink, if there were any pink bars, it would represent like that area of the brain is working, maybe functioning too hard, working too hard to maintain, right? And then blue is a really good balance. So that's just a way to look at the data of what's happening in these sites. So my clients that have, these are self-reports that clients, because after 48 hours, once somebody has been treated or given an application, we like to monitor within the first 48 hours to see how the body is responding to the application. Was it too much or too little? Do we need to do less sites or more sites, right? To get that sweet spot of optimum functioning. So my anxious clients have reported an overall feeling relaxed, less anxious, mental clarity, reduction of stress, increased pleasant mood, easier to problem solve, focus and concentration has improved. I mean, just the amount of improved functioning is there. A deep restful sleep. A lot of clients will report now that they're getting REM REM sleep, that they're having more vivid dreams. And so that's always fun to like, wow, like I've had clients say that I haven't dreamt in like over 10 years, and to be able to have that deep sleep and rested sleep and dream, right? Here are some self-reports of data I've collected from the 48-hour reports from people with ADHD and parents reports from their children with ADHD. They have their children or the adult has overall relaxed feeling, that mental clarity, easier to think clearly, increase the motivation, easier to problem solve, increased function of concentration, increased ability to follow through on tasks, increased ability to follow instructions. There's less irritability, so that frustration tolerance has gone up, right? They're able to flow, go with changes better. Personally, my children, some personal reports, they're able to process math at a better rate than, I love getting that, I haven't told any of the teachers that we're doing this, but they'll call and be like, wow, they're doing so much better with their math processing, and to know that because their brain is being able to function at a better level. So I talked a little bit about the body already, kind of like the body sensors. Again, overall relaxed feeling, an improved range of motion. Some clients reported a reduction of pain. Whenever we do an application on the body for pain, we're looking for a 50% reduction, but oftentimes my clients and myself get 100% a reduction of pain. But when we're doing runs or applications, we'll continue to do the application until they feel that shift of pain up to 50%. And improved mood, deep rested sleep, right? I love that feeling on a personal level. I feel so relaxed from a Lens neurofeedback session that it feels, I had an anxiety client report this who I do body lens with. I love the way they said it. They said it feels like if I can handle anything that comes my way. They feel confident. And it lasts throughout, 7 days or so. And I know that someone had a question, which I'll address that about, like, how long does it last? How many times do they have to come? And I'm going to cover that too right now. So session durations. So how long or how often does a client need to continue Lens neurofeedback? So children and adolescents, their brains are more flexible. They have more plasticity, which means that ability to be able to change and adapt is a lot stronger. So less sessions are needed. On average, depending on what the goal is, 6 to 11 sessions, and they're done. We don't have to see them anymore. And the way that works is that they start with an initial intake, and then a second session for that week, and then weekly. And then once we start realizing, wow, it's really functioning well, we start going to every other week. The minute that we try though every other week, we get to see how long did the neurofeedback improvements last. Oh, it's holding for that week that we don't go, it's holding. Great. Let's try that for a month or two. Now let's go to 1 time a month. How long is that improvement holding? And so we're measuring, right? Because lens neurofeedback from research has shown support that it is actually regrowing neural connections or strengthening growth. Neural growth is happening from this, which you'll see a lot with the research on ADHD with medications from children who have been using ADHD medications since they were 6 or 7 years old. and then brain scans later that there's actual been neural stimulation and growth. So think about that. You're strengthening that neurological connection every time there's a lens application over and over and over again, and to the point that it's so strong it doesn't need another feedback session. It's in place, it's locked in, right? So that's for children and adolescents. There are some exceptions to that, which I'll cover too. For adults, brains are a little less flexible. There's still some flexibility, but it's not the same as a child or adolescent. So on average, to meet the goal, maybe 11 to 20 sessions, depending on what the goal is. Complex issues or neurological issues. For example, a neurological issue, autism, ADHD, Parkinson's, and other neurological issues. Those are things from birth, right? Or other neurological reasonings, right? For the best of my knowledge, I have not seen a cure for for ADHD or anything that you've been born with, autism. I haven't seen, I would love to be corrected on that if I missed anything, a cure. Lens neurofeedback is not a cure for autism or for ADHD. What it does is it improves functioning. It's a tool to improve functioning, where oftentimes clients report not needing medications any longer because of the improved functionality. But those type of things from birth or that type of neurological issue definitely needs more sessions, because the brain wants to return itself back to the original functioning level. So those on average may need 40 to 100 sessions for it to really stick. If you have people with like Parkinson, or Alzheimer's, really, or later stages of life, that is just they may need that for the rest of their life, a weekly or bi-weekly or one time a month, just to keep up with functioning. It's not to cure it, but clients report it can really help with those things. If you have complex trauma or other complex issues, it might take more sessions. So it really depends on what the goal is and the person and what they're going through. Right here, you can feel free to kind of read over these. If you can see, these are took some, just what people have written about reviews on how their life has changed from using lens in as little as 4 sessions or a month worth of lens applications one time a week, or as little as 1 or 2 sessions, what a game changer it has been for them. But with that being said, I'm going to take this time to address the question. I did have a question about fees. Let's see here. About the cost of a session and how many sessions. We talked about how many sessions were needed and how long sessions take. Okay, so intake takes about 45 minutes to an hour, because we're going to go over review questions, what your goals are, all of those type of things from lens. And then we're going to do a toe in the water applications, which means we're going to do the lowest setting and see what happens. Now, afterwards, it ranges from anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes. We book 20 minutes, but you could be done in 15. And I say that because we're coming in, we're reviewing your 48-hour form, we're reviewing a quick, hey, how have you been feeling type of change, and we're going right in and we're running those applications 1 second, 4 seconds, 2 sessions. We might do here, and here, 1 second each time. So you can see how quickly the actual application, from setting up to running the application, very quickly. So that is to answer. I think I covered that question. I'm going to go ahead and see here in the chat. I don't know if you have any other questions. Let me see here. Yeah, if you have a question, go ahead. You can open your mic if there was something that I missed or didn't cover. Oh, I think I didn't cover the cost, right? So there are other lens neurofeedback providers in the state of Tennessee. I know of at least 10. And then there's the one that I was using in Nashville, which they're great, Brain Harmony Center, fantastic place. The only reason we stopped with them was because they were so full. They're busting at the seams of clients that once we got out of scheduling, we weren't able to get back in. So that's a great problem to have, right? They're having so much success. So they're great. So our fees and my practice, we're, you know, as we're starting out, because it's a new service, it is $75 per, 20-minute session per application. The very first intake is 150, and then you get 6 sessions with me, or here at my practice with either my lens technician or myself, depending on what the client's looking for. If they're doing therapy with me and they want the lens, that's a different fee. But if they're doing just lens neurofeedback with a trained lens neurofeedback technician, they are not therapists. It's not therapy. Although, of course, clients can say whatever they want to the lens technician, and they are held to the same confidentiality. It's not repeated. Lens technicians are working under my license. This system is not given to anyone or trained by anyone who is not either working under a licensed professional in the mental health or medical field. So any technician I hire here on is working under my license, so they do review cases with me. But it's still confidential, but it's not therapy, right? So you can imagine you're getting your hair done, or you're at the barber or whatever, and you're just talking, whatever. It's okay to do that too. But just know that they're not trained mental health professionals if they are just a licensed technician working under someone's license, such as my technician who's working underneath my license. So that's what we're doing right now. Fees may be subject to change as I grow in the service, but that's what we're doing right now. And I know that other providers, where I was getting lens at, was $150 per session, per application. And so I don't know about prices for other lens. But I will say, I didn't cover this. I'm in therapy myself. I love going to therapy, and I get brain spotting therapy. And having lens on myself has really helped me process my own trauma and be able to be more open and less anxious in my therapy sessions. So as a therapist myself, I love being able to put an application on a client at the very beginning of a therapy session, and then do brain spotting or whatever we're going to do for the rest of the session, because it truly opens up so just avenues to be able to process in a different way, and they work really well together. So do you have any questions? I know I covered a lot.
So what it looks like when you do it as a therapist, like combined with therapy, would be like they come in, you like review their symptoms, or like how have you been doing since last time?
Yeah.
And then might be like, okay, well, let's do like the sensors for like 5-10 minutes, and then move into the rest of therapy.
We go right in, and sometimes it starts right. We start kind of like after I'm setting up the applications, and sometimes I might, if it's a child, right? I work with children, I might be like, hey, let's do our feelings check in while we're setting up, like, and I might give them a feelings chart. If it's an adult client of mine, I might ask them for a different way to check in and say, what did you want to brain spot today? Like, okay, yeah, while I'm setting them up, or, kind of like, right, getting ourselves ready. It's not in total silence, right, while I'm doing the application, right? Type of thing, right? And then we'll move right into whatever whatever modality we're working on that day.
Yeah. And you might have already answered this, but can I just ask for clarification? I've never like done any type of neurofeedback, but I've heard that for, I guess, traditional neurofeedback, it would be like you're doing a task or something.
Yes.
Like the person receiving it is doing something active, but I'm not hearing that for this type.
Right. I love that you asked that so much, because that's something I actually forgot to cover. This is what I have never experienced traditional neurofeedback, but I've gone and toured centers around where my private practice is before after I got lens. So then I got to see the difference from their explanation. So I can only regurgitate information that I learned about taking tours. But lens neurofeedback, you just sit there, you can have your eyes closed, you can fidget. I've got fidget, the kids will fidget with stuff. You don't have to do anything. Just sit there and enjoy yourself for whatever you're, which I love. The traditional neurofeedback, my understanding is they put an entire, some of them will put an entire like cap And you're actually using the computer system that they have, and you're doing like brain training where you're getting neurofeedback, but you're also like, it might be, I've seen like the one that I toured, it was like a car, and your brain is like, you're trying to move the car forward, and then that's how the brain is responding to the neurofeedback, and it's getting retrained by that. And then they go and will do protocols and send the protocol and review. It's not working. Let's go and do another 20 sites and see what happens then. This is more as a I do brain spotting therapy, which is like, they always talk about brain spotting being like organic, right? It's kind of like, we're going to see what's going to happen. That's what I like so much about Lens, because it's kind of like, hey, we're just going to see what happens for you. You know, it's very organic in the sense we're going to see how your body and brain responds to this application, and we'll know if we need to do a little bit more or a little bit less next time. Something that I didn't cover that your question just made me remember is that the worst thing that could happen in a Lens treatment or session, if we were to overtreat, they call it an overtreatment. Basically, within the first 48 hours, if we just put too much neurofeedback, I had a kid in here who had a little bit too much neurofeedback. They knocked out on the couch. Like after we did they passed out. And then parent was like, they never take naps. And I was like, well, I'm pretty sure they're going to sleep very good. So it was kind of like okay, well, that was the worst thing that happened, was that they slept for 5 hours afterwards and then woke up and we were fine. Right. But I will say, when I was in the training and I was doing body applications, you can see where sometimes an overtreatment for someone, like, for example, I did so many body rounds that without 45 minutes later, I was so tired. I was like, gosh, I don't think I could drive. If I needed to leave, there's no way I'm going to drive. Like, I'm literally trying to hold my eyes open with toothpicks. You know, and so you can see where that could be like, oh, well, that's not, that wouldn't be ideal if you're trying to leave somewhere, right? So that's why we match Lens with, we're just going to, less is more. Also, something that can happen with clients who have anxiety, they may feel a little more anxious, no panic attacks, but they might have more anxious thinking within that 48 hour. The other thing that could happen is that someone could have super energy, which for me, I remember when I got treated when I was in the summer, I learned in the training, once I became a technician, that was an overtreatment, that I was like wired, like if I had 10 cups of coffee, but I loved that feeling. I was like, yes, I'm getting things done, but for someone else, they
like kind of manic.
Yes.
Getting toward that.
Yes. I hate to say that word, but I was like, well, I don't know how.
I know. I'm like, but it feels good sometimes. And not, it sounds like not in an enduring way. Like for the next 2 weeks, you're not going to be able to sleep.
No. But I loved that. Like, I got so much stuff done. Right. But that would be like an over treatment. But for somebody, that might be like, I did not like that. For those 48 hours or that 2 hours afterwards, whatever. Okay, thanks for letting us know. We're not gonna do 4 sites today. We're gonna do 2, and we're gonna see how that feels. Right. And so that's kind of how it works. There are cases for like someone who's coming in for chronic migraines. We call that a core 8. One of the core 8s is what in an intake we'll ask about core 8s. People who are coming in for Tourette treatment, seizure treatment, migraines, explosive reactivity. If they, whether they got an overtreatment or not, even if we did a toe in the water, anyone with a core 8 might experience a higher level of migraines for that week. They might, but it's a temporary. And so we'll let that person know, make sure you have access to your migraine medication. Or, and then clients report after that they're all gravy, like they're like, this is the best thing ever. So there might be an initial, right? But again, this Lens neurofeedback, if you have a pacemaker, a metal plate in your body, screws, it doesn't affect any of that stuff. They can do it with as little as newborns, and even animals. During my training, I didn't do any animals, but I'm going to start doing animals.
Do you have pets that you're gonna like try it on first?
I don't. I have my volunteer in the training, you have to have a certain amount of volunteers. So I have some volunteers that were like, hey, when you're ready to, try it on pets, we would love our pets to. I've got an anxious, in the training, we learned about how people do it with horses, gorillas, giraffes, and that helps their anxiety or fears, and they're relaxed, and they only need like one session and that's it.
Yeah.
So there's
that's
a
amazing.
lot. Yeah, like it's amazing. Like it's amazing. But yeah, was there any other questions?
So what does it feel like? Like, is there a sensation when you're doing the little treatments, or is it like, well, I assume that happened because I saw you do it, but I didn't actually feel any.
I love that you're asking this. It helps me for the next time I want to continue doing these periodically. It helps me remember to cover these things. So thank you. Some people feel nothing at all. Some people feel, I had clients that are like, oh, like a tingling sensation. I had a client on Tuesday that I'm treating their arthritis on their wrist, where it flares up there. And they were like, oh gosh, I felt like and oh gosh, not like that. But they're like, how interesting, like a tingling up their finger. And then they immediately felt no pain. Some people feel, like they might notice the colors in the room are all of a sudden brighter. They might notice changes like that. The most thing they notice is an instant relaxation sensation where they go from, they felt like fight, flight, freeze, like all tense, to like, whoa. And I even see it happen while I'm doing the application. I see their body kind of, instant relaxation. And sometimes they don't notice it. And I'll be like, hey, take a minute, right, to just do a body scan, notice your body, because I saw your shoulders drop. Did you notice that? No. I have clients that I do brain spotting with that do lens as well. And they tell me that if they get lens, they get the same effect that they did from the brain spotting of, wow, we processed and our SUDs were at 9 and now we're like at a 1 and we're feeling so calm and confident and relaxed that the lens has the same effect. And so pairing them together is not that it's a race to like feel better, but I feel like it's like processing on steroids, like in a good way.
Well, yeah, it's kind of nice if we have really great tools to help us feel better sooner so we can enjoy the rest of our life sooner. Why would we not do that?
Yeah.
I do brain spotting too. And I'm like, it's why would we want to like feel bad longer?
Right. I know. I always tell people like when I'm like, it's not a race, but you could totally feel a lot better faster. So yeah, did I cover all these? Were really great questions. Did I cover all your questions?
I think so. And I could probably see this from your website. Where are you located?
Great. Yeah, I'm in Brentwood, so I'm terrible. I'm one of those that's like that tree that's really big. So
I'm not familiar with Brentwood anyway.
So I'm always like the tree. No, but basically if you were going southbound on 65 from Nashville, right past exit 78. Okay, it's Oak. Oh gosh, see? Oaks exit. I'm like right off the highway, basically.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and so I'm right like in the line of like Brentwood. Well, not directly the line, but I call it that. Like right before the exit to Lipscomb, or if you're going northbound. But I'm like right in that area between Nashville and Brentwood.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And you have space for new clients?
Yeah, I do. I have space for, so if they're looking for therapy and lens, then as those rates would be my clinical rates. But if they're just want to, hey, I just want to try lens and see how, and I have a therapist already, great. Especially if they do a lens right before they go see their therapist, that would be, with my lens technician, they wouldn't. And so, yes, we have space available for the lens technician.
And do you do it, I think you might have mentioned this with the cost, do you do it as like packages?
For the lens? Or
for lens.
Just lens. Yeah, so right now, as we're starting out, what we're doing is it's not necessarily a package, but we're just doing 6 sessions. I didn't call it as a package, but it's 6 sessions through the month of May. So like, even if you did a consult and you started the last week of May, you still would get 6 sessions at $75.
75 per session, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.